Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Snarky Teacher Podcast. I'm your favorite snarky teacher, Miss Rhodes. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share with your teacher friends. You can also find me on TikTok and Instagram at Mrs. Rhodes Math. Welcome to class. So I'm one of those people that when I go to a restaurant, if I'm going to like a seafood restaurant, I will order seafood. And I think that makes sense, right? You go to a restaurant and you order the type of food that they like specialize in. And it's kind of like, when you get with your good girlfriends or your good friends and you want to go out and like you want to go, I don't know, like here we love Papados, we love Papacitos, we love we also love Wingstop. Like, don't get me wrong, we are definitely not above Wingstop. But I wouldn't go to Wingstop and be like, let me get a lobster tail. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I feel like the cooks in the kitchen would just be like, is she nuts? Or if you were to go to like Red Lobster and be like, I want an Angus burger, probably not going to be good, just like, why did you go to Red Lobster for a burger? And don't say it's because the group wanted to go, because that's also like, get shrimp, get scampi, maybe a little pasta, get the bread, the biscuits are lit. But why would you order a burger? Like, it's going to taste like trash. Anyways, I digress. But those are the types of scenarios that kind of make you go like, you cannot be serious, And really thinking about that is what this episode is about. This episode is about some of the weird things that we as educators are asked to do, or scenarios that we find ourselves in somehow, that just, they make you raise, like, I'm going to date myself here, the people's eyebrow. Love The Rock. He's amazing. Anyways, that's not the point. So yeah, the wildest things teachers have been asked to do, and ultimately they all make you say, you cannot be serious. So the first one is being asked to bring a doctor's note in order to return to school. First of all, so there's a whole story behind this, but let's just start with like the beginning of it. Bringing a doctor's note in itself is probably not terrible, but prior to this whole pandemic with COVID and everything, I probably would have been like, fine, I gotta bring a doctor's note. I've been out for a week, 2 weeks, right, with COVID. Then bringing a doctor's note kind of makes sense. Post-COVID is when this particular scenario happened. It did not happen to me, but a teacher did send this to me. So let's just talk about it. So apparently this note was requested to prove that she had been on sick leave. And the thing is that the teacher was out with COVID. And as you probably know, most of us just took a home test. If you thought you had COVID, you took a home test. It was either positive or negative, and you took a picture and you sent it to your admin. You were just like, yo, I got COVID. I'm out for 2 weeks. And no one questioned it. Well, not this admin. This admin said, that is not sufficient. And then they made up a district policy, to which the teacher then sent a copy of the district policy and a link and was like, I'm ready to return. Like, this time is excused. Now, if you don't know why this is wild, so during the 2 years that COVID was we were at the height of it, a lot of districts offered COVID leave, like COVID relief leave. So it was not your sick leave bank. It was not your paid leave. It was like an extra bucket of time for when you were on quarantine, because a lot of us were put on quarantine, even though we weren't testing positive, but we had been close contact. So you had to be out, and there had to be a sub. Like, for me personally, when I was out and I was a close contact, I literally still taught my classes online, and my kids were in the library. It was a crazy situation, but we made it work. Your schools, we had to figure it out. I ain't even mad at my admin for trying to do that. We had to do what we had to do. Kids had to learn. So I taught from my house. but I would lose my ish if I had to go going to the doctor when you don't feel good is already like the worst. But if you already know, like I'm taking a home test and it shows that I got COVID, like if I'm telling you I got at this point, people were getting it left and right. Like, are you doubting that I have it? Like, I don't get it. But anyways, I digress. That was a stupid thing to ask. That's my opinion. It's a weird thing to ask. Anyway, um, a teacher was told she is required to provide after school tutoring for all of her failing students. I don't even know. Well, I guess they said she's a she, so it's apparently a she. Um, Here's the requirements. The tutoring sessions were mandatory for the students, and she was not being paid for this additional instructional time. No additional pay. So after school means after contracted hours, if for those of you that don't know about teaching. So anything that we do after school is also after our contracted hours. So contract hours pretty much end like 30 minutes after school students are gone. So basically, if I have to tutor after school, I need a check because now I have to plan for an additional instructional time, and I just feel like you need to be paying me for that. But then to say it's mandatory, like how are we enforcing that? How do you enforce if the students are failing? Two things are happening. When students fail, there are always one of two things happening, and one is more prominent than the other. They do not have the support that they need at home, and they do not understand the material. Those are the two things that are happening. Because support at home will make you do what you need to do in class. Even if you were like slacking off in class, you're gonna figure it out eventually. Maybe not the first day or second day, but if parents are staying on your butt, you're gonna figure that crap out. Second one, if you don't understand what's going on, then I can give you some additional support. But it still goes back to parental support. So, anyways, how do you enforce? Let's just deal with this. If a student is failing and they don't have like the parental reinforcement, how are you going to force them to stay after school? Like, who's picking them up? Are we providing transportation for these kids to be bused home at a different time because they have to stay after school because it's required if you're failing? Like, I don't get it. How do you require tutoring? Anyways, I digress. I don't think you can do that. I feel like you can't do that. And then to do it with no pay. Like, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And I'm going to dare you to tell me I have to do it. And if y'all holler, other duties as assigned, that is not how that works. Other duties as assigned within your contracted hours as it directly relates to the education of students. That's it. That's how that works. A parent requested that the teacher change the student's grade so the student wouldn't have to face the embarrassment of being held back. I'm sorry. That's no. So, can we talk about accountability and responsibility? Because it feels like that needs to be a conversation. Students have to be held accountable and responsible. And especially if they're old enough to also understand feeling embarrassed because they failed. So if you fail the class, if you're failing, because I guess we're not talking about like the class, we're failing like the grade because they're being held back. Yeah. So if you're being held back, so let's say you're in the 11th grade, getting close to graduation, and then you fail the 11th grade. If you really think that the teachers are going to change your grade so that you don't feel the embarrassment of being in the 11th grade again next year, it's a no. Be embarrassed. You're going to be embarrassed if you're waiting on Miss Rhodes to change your grade. The thing is, and then I feel like the parents, you're like enabling this kind of foolishness because honestly, like when that student gets older and they go to get like a real job or try to go to college, like a college professor is not going to be like, oh, let me pass you so you don't get put on academic probation because you're failing your classes. Like, we're not teaching them to be responsible for themselves. Like, what's the lesson here? The lesson here feels like mommy and daddy will always be here to support you. And if that's what you want to do, like you want to financially support your students to like the ends of the earth, that's fine. Perfectly fine. Just understand that you're not raising a responsible adult when you say, I'll bear the brunt of all of the things that you're responsible for so you don't have to feel bad. Like, so much is wrong with that. Moving on. More things that make me say You cannot be serious. Parent refuses to have their child serve after school detention as a consequence for their actions. They also refuse to work with the school administrators to correct the student's behavior. So the school decided to give the student out of school suspension for failure to serve, and then the student then continued their poor behavior, and the parents were outraged. This kid is 16. So I love this. Like, first of all, kudos to the school and administrators for like really being in that teacher, like on that teacher's side and being like, look, if you can't serve after school detention, just don't come because you're gonna have consequences. Because what we're saying now is like a complete contrast to the previous what we just talked about. So you're getting consequences. You want to act a fool? We got your act a fool. So now you act a fool at the house. You got 2 days OSS since you can't serve these 2 days of detention for the same thing because you're going to have. I love it. Face the consequences. And parent, you just gonna have to be mad. I'm sorry, but since you couldn't pick them up after school and them serve detention, they gonna have OSS. We tried to work with you. You didn't want to work with us. So moving on. I digress. Um, the district requires the school to use a specific curriculum, but then refuses to pay for it. So we all, if you don't know this already, probably, I'll tell you. I won't say that you should know, but so the states, the states individually say, okay, this is the curriculum, like these are the standards, I guess, that we are going to teach in each grade level. So from K through 12, honors classes. They also accommodate for like special education and specials or electives, right? For every single class, there are standards that students have to master, right? And that teachers have to teach. So we can use a variety of curriculums that like to accomplish that goal. So the standards, and then you get the curriculum that teaches those standards. So districts can choose what curriculum programs they want to use to kind of help guide teachers. So they'll say, okay, I want to use, like, for example, a really popular one. I don't personally like it, but for language arts, a lot of schools, like elementary schools, like to use like Lucy Culkin's for reading. Now, is it my preference? No. Do people use it? Yes. It is what it is. However, that's an example. So if a district wants to use that program, you got to pay for a license to use it. And you got to pay for it at a district level so that all teachers in the district have access to it. Okay, now that we've got the logistics out of the way, because that's like the gist of it high level, if a school and the staff, the district is saying, yeah, you got to do it, and then they're like, but we're not going to pay for it. Also understand that schools as an individual school do not get money from anywhere. The money that schools have access to comes from the district. So if the district says, we're not paying, that means that they're not providing the school what they need, and they're just like, y'all figure it out. So I guess they want us to do a fundraiser. That's what it sounds like. You need to do a fundraiser in order to get this program. Also, not practical and probably not going to happen. So not a good setup. Anyways, teachers required to pay out of pocket for a substitute. So there are states, I believe North Carolina is one that I know for sure, where the teacher has to pay the substitute when they're out, which is crazy because subs are making like $100 a day, and teachers already don't make like livable wages in most cases. So, like, how? Like, WTF? How are you supposed to pay for a sub? Like, what if, like, and they take it out of your check. Like, that's what they do. They take it out of your check. And I've heard this firsthand. Thankfully, the district I work in does not do that. Thank you, Jesus. However, I could never. I could never. Absolutely not. What if you're on maternity leave and you're out for like 6 weeks? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? What if you're, oh my goodness, there's so many scenarios in which this, what if like you're on bereavement or something unforeseen happens and now you got to pay, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like, could you imagine how many teachers who are already like struggling financially because again, we don't make enough, then you turn around and you have to pay for a sub. Like that is like it's discouraging you to take a day off, but that's so counterproductive. Anyways, we'll move on. More things that I just can't believe teachers are asked to do. Provide lessons for a student weeks in advance because they're going on a family vacation. So I'm gonna probably out some folks that I know. However, um, actually, I won't because they didn't ask for this. However, I have heard of way too many stories where teachers have been asked for their lesson plans by parents. So parents are like, yeah, we're going to on a cruise for a week. This is not spring break. It's not like summer vacation. It's like literally like a random, week in February. And they're like, oh, the kids need a break. So we're going to take them on vacation, right? Whatever. Which that's cool. Like that's your prerogative. However, why is it that you think that the teacher is supposed to be prepared like a month in advance? Like if you tell me in December you're going on vacation in February and then in January you're like, yeah, so for that specific week in February, I'm gonna need your lessons and I'm gonna need to know what you're gonna have my child do and we'll see if we can get it done. How about I'll see you when you get back? That's my response. Like absolutely not, because I don't even know what I'm teaching tomorrow. Like get on Khan Academy, we'll figure it out. Like check, I don't know, check the portal. That's all I got. That's so crazy. Also, like that's really stressful because we don't know. Like we don't know what we're going to be teaching that day because we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. That's really crazy and it's like anxiety causing. Anyhow, moving on. Teachers told students are not allowed to fail their class. Wait a minute. So, y'all, I'm not going to front like I try not to like look at certain stuff that teachers send me. Like if they're like, "Hey, this fits this list," like I won't look at it, like I'll just wait. So this one kind of catches me off guard. My bad. So the students are not allowed to fail your class. So what do you do with them? I need clarity. So like if you know what if you know how to respond to this, I need to know how to respond to this because I don't understand how we can say that students are not allowed to fail your class. Like I feel like, yeah, like sure, I don't want them to fail my class, but I mean, ultimately, is that really up to me? No, like the students have to do, like, what do you do with that? I don't even know what to say. I'm moving on because I don't have words. So y'all comment section's open. So this one looks funny. So during a staff meeting where most of the teachers were on their phones, not engaged, the principal said, you need to make your class more interesting so the kids will want to participate. um, Maybe the staff meetings should be more interesting so the teachers will want to participate. Also, just as an FYI, it is not the teacher's job to make the class fun. Like, first of all, I'm a math teacher. Math can be like, I'm funny, like I'm entertaining, but y equals mx plus b has never entertained a child. You know what I mean? It's just not fun. You know, finding the circumference of a circle has never been entertaining. You know, finding the mean standard deviation of any set of any graph has never, any statistical data has never been fun. Like it's just not fun. Multiplying polynomials is not fun. It's not entertaining. The children are not excited. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. Can you have fun activities sometimes? Yes. But if your kids don't find value in the lessons they learn, and most of them don't, and right now the apathy, oh my goodness, they're so apathetic towards education. Like there's really nothing. First of all, if kids aren't always going to find value, and sometimes that just has to be okay. Like I can't force them to think that. First of all, everything is not fun. Let's deal with that. But I also can't force them, especially in a middle school setting, to find what I'm teaching them to be valuable. A lot of what we're talking about is more about their ability to think critically and reason, because that's the underlying skill than it is about like the actual content. So, yeah, absolutely not worried about that part. Also, it's not lost on me that the principal was saying this while also being guilty of it. Moving on. A student missed the bus because they were playing around in the bathroom. How am I not shocked? So the teacher sent them to the office to call the parent to pick them up. That's what we do. And the parent asked the teacher to just drop them off on their way home. Let me tell you what we not gonna do. This is what we not gonna do at all. I'm not doing that. That's a no. That's a no. First of all, what? Like, okay, so in most districts, like it is literally frowned upon for teachers to put students in their cars, especially since like now I'm taking a student off campus in my vehicle and I'm liable. So like if we're in an accident, like I'm responsible for whatever happens to this kid. I will not be taking your kid home, y'all. Like, get it to parents. Come on. I hope that they didn't do this. I hope this teacher didn't do this, and I hope that their admin was like, "Yeah, no." I hope that admin was like, "You don't need to do that because that sounds like a really bad, like a really really bad idea because it is in fact a really really bad idea." Anyways, that is the list of, yeah, the things that made me just go like, you cannot be serious. It has been real, so thanks for joining me, and I'll see you, well, not technically, but next time. So, class dismissed.